So this is the third book of Poseidon's Children trilogy by Alastair Reynolds. This one's called Poseidon's Wake. So this one I thought really didn't land. It, if anything, made the last book even worse. So like the first book kind of drug on. This one's even longer than that, and I feel like it dragged on. Again, in this trilogy, the second is definitely the best. This one felt like it sort of undercut a lot of the second book, and I hold Alastair Reynolds to a high standard, but I don't know what was going on with this book. So like at the end of the second book, we had a peace made between Arachne, this artificial intelligence who was terrified of humanity and thought humanity was going to try and destroy her, and the humans who feared this Artelect and felt like she was a threat to them. And so there was this war sparked between the two above Crucible, this alien planet. But then the Watchkeepers, these alien machines, stepped in and made peace between them. And then it's sort of, that's how it ended, with peace on Crucible and Artelect and humans getting along, Arachne and humans reconciled, and they're going to work towards this bright future together. This book does not mention Arachne at all. It only mentions the information wave. So at the end of the second book on Earth, Chiku Red did something that destroyed the AUG. Sort of, she broke the internet. She shut down and destroyed the whole internet to destroy the evil version of Arachne that was around the solar system. And this had the effect of, yes, destroying the internet, and thus the AI which was inhabiting the internet is presumably destroyed. But this information wave went out from Earth and eventually reached Crucible 28 light years later and wiped out that Arachne, that good one. The Arachne that was terrified that she was going to be wiped out by humanity and had been warned by the Watchkeepers that humanity was going to destroy her. And at the very end, where they made peace and they're going to live happily ever after, no, she was just destroyed as well by humanity. It just really undercut all of that. All that occurred in that last book. And also Chiku Red. So it ended with the internet's destroyed, but Chiku Red doesn't have nanites in her head. She's not affected by this. She's lived basically without the internet for long enough that she will be the one to sort of lead humanity forward. But she's not mentioned at all in this book. We have no idea what she did or anything. Anyways, so this whole book is, I should mention, the back of the book has two major spelling errors. So Ndege, Ndege is this character's name, and it says send Nedgi, Nedgi, and then later it says Ndegi, Ndegi. So they spell her name wrong twice, which is kind of hilarious. So this one starts with following up on Chiku Green, Eunice, the Construct Eunice, Robot Eunice, Kenya, and the Tantor Dakota, who the three of them are called the Trinity in this book. They had been taken by the Watchkeepers and sent away. That was the Watchkeepers' price for brokering this peace between Arachne and the humans. So these three, the machine intelligence, the human, and the evolving not artificial but emergent intelligence, the elephant Tantor with super intelligence, get taken away. And we get, in this book, at the very start, there is a signal sent to Crucible saying send Ndegi, who was Chiku Green's daughter. So Chiku Green had two children, Posse and Ndege, and that's all they get is this signal. And so at this point, Ndege is very old. She's also sort of on house arrest, very similar to Travertine in the last book. It turns out that Ndege had been experimenting on the mandala, and somehow it accidentally activated it, and that caused something to happen which seemed to destroy Zanzibar. So the holoship Zanzibar had been in orbit. There were hundreds of thousands of people aboard it, and it was destroyed, and nothing remains but this ring of rubble that orbits Crucible. But it turns out that it didn't totally destroy Zanzibar. A portion of it was actually blasted out at almost the speed of light to this other system, Gleis 163. And that just happens to be where this signal comes from. And so they have already built interstellar ships, and they're going to have a voyage to go out and solve this issue. Posse, he is sort of the planetary governor or something. He seems like he's in control of the planet to a degree. So he doesn't want to, but he agrees to go on the sixth expedition. His sister is very old. She was going to go, but then her daughter, she has a daughter, Goma Akinya, agrees to go in her place. So Goma is probably the most Eunice-like of these Akinyas that we've met. Mostly per personality, she's very rough and impulsive, and yeah. But she's like Jeffrey. She's a scientist. She's studying elephants, specifically the remaining Tantor populations on Crucible, who, because they've been breeding with baseline elephants, because there's so few of them, their cognition levels have been decreasing. They're basically, the Tantors are disappearing and they're turning back to humans. Which it doesn't mention at all the fact that they're breeding these super intellectual, super intelligent Tantors with baseline elephants, which is kind of like breeding humans with chimpanzees. Anyways, she decides to go in her mother's place, and also her wife Rue goes with her, and so they set off on an expedition to wherever this signal came from, and stuff happens along the way. There's a group of people that are on the ship as well, there seems to be some plot that they're going to want to destroy the ship, and they figure it out, but they get the wrong guy, and Posse ends up being killed, so he gets murdered, which is that's the only part of this book I actually remembered. Probably the reason why this book is so unforgettable is because I didn't really like it. And so they arrive at Gleis 163. Now, meanwhile, in the solar system, we have not Jakku Red, but we have Kanu Akinya, who is the son of Jakku Yellow. Now, the ages are really strange here, because he should be super, super, super old at this point. Anyways, like, by the end of this book, we're into the fourth millennium. Like, it's like, must be close to 3,000. Anyways, so Kanu Akinya, who had been, like, estranged from his mother in the last book, and he was one of the merfolk and worked with the panspermians and knew Arethusa, which, by the way, Arethusa is now on Crucible. She's still alive. She's just really, really big. Kanu is on Mars, the Evolarium. So the Evolarium, which had not been mentioned at all in the second book, it sort of has taken over all of Mars. And so Mars is occupied and run by these machines. And Kanu's there as an ambassador. So there's only a handful of ambassadors there. Kanu's one of them. Basically, an accident happens and the machines manage to save him, put him back together, and send him on his way. But because he's been sort of healed by the machines, he's seen as tainted, and so he loses his job as an ambassador and is free to go. Unbeknownst to anyone, including him, is that one of the machines, this personality, Swift, has put himself inside of Kanu's brain. Now, not like machines or nanites, and like literally into his neural structure. Now, Kanu consented to this and agreed to do it, but had his memories of that erased so that he could sort of get past security, sort of stuff. And the reason they're doing this is that the machines have somehow picked up this signal that has been sent from Gleis 163, this very, very weak signal that's been directed at Crucible. Somehow these machines just miraculously are able to pick it up on on Mars, in the solar system of all places, which doesn't seem very believable. And so Kanu meets with his ex-wife by chance, but it's actually by design, because she's going to Europa, and there's this whole thing on Europa where he just happens to have an interstellar spaceship, like top of the line spaceship, which I don't know if it's like an Akinya ship, but it's not his, but it is his, and I don't know how it got there or why it's there, but he gets this interstellar ship and shoots off towards Gleis 163. Turns out his ex-wife was aboard as well, so she gets dragged along with this adventure, and she didn't really want to, and there's a whole thing with them being upset, and then they get back together, and then anyways, it drags on. Around Gleis 163, we have a number of things. So we have this planet Paladin, which has a mandala, same as Crucible, this giant alien structure that turns out is for not faster than light travel, but is for near instantaneous travel between, instantaneous from the reference point of the people traveling, but just a sliver under the speed of the light travel between these two things. So from Crucible to Gleis 163. And orbiting that is the fragment of Zanzibar, the holoship, that had accidentally been shot over there by Ndedje. Now, on this holoship, there had been a number of Tantors and a number of humans. And by the time that The book takes place, the humans have sort of lost a war or have been all put into stasis or hibernation, and the Tantors, who now call themselves the Risen, are ruling the place. And Dakota is also there because apparently the Trinity also went to the same solar system that Ndedje accidentally teleported the holoship to. So Dakota, the Tantor, rules it as matriarch, as autarch. Her intelligence has increased vastly. She's almost smarter than the humans now, and it turns out that the Watchkeepers sort of gave this gift to her, and successive generations of Tantors have risen, are now super smart. So basically we've got this comet floating around a planet. Inside of it, or not comet, an asteroid, inside of it are a whole bunch of super smart elephants who have taken over from their human, not masters, but and their ruling shop. Jakku Green was killed during this. She's no longer there. Eunice, the construct Eunice, has been given mortal flesh by the Watchkeepers, so she's now inhabiting a human body, and she's for all intents and purposes human. She has been exiled to another planet, Orison, with a number of other Tantors, and she's the one that sent the signal, Sen Ndedje. Also in this solar system is the planet Poseidon, this giant water world, and in this water world are a whole bunch of wheels that are all submerged in the water, like giant. They look like arcs, but they're actually fully circle wheels that are engraved with the M script. So the M builders, the people who built the mandala, have sort of written on it their history and their physics and whatever. But surrounding this Poseidon, this planet, is all these 40-something, 42 or 43 moons, which are sort of guarding it and preventing anyone from going into it. Turns out this is what the Watchkeepers want. They have discovered that at the quantum level, or something at the very base level of physics of the universe, that the vacuum fluctuation, basically the universe is going to end at any point. There's no way to predict it, but at some point the universe is just going to blink out of existence because the vacuum will collapse and everything that has ever existed will be gone. And the M builders also discovered this, but seems to have found a way to prevent it, and they've written that on this planet Poseidon. So the Watchkeepers really want this information. So that's why they took the Trinity, Jakku, Eunice, and Dakota to get this information for them, because only organics can pass through this sort of trial and get to the information. And Watchkeepers are pure machines. They don't actually have consciousness, and it's explained. They evolved so much, they've evolved beyond consciousness, and they don't even realize that they're no longer conscious, because as soon as you lose consciousness, you're not going to be conscious that you're not conscious anymore. Anyways, and so the Trinity had gone down to the planet. They've experienced something called the Terror, which is part of the test, and that is having this truth revealed to them that nothing in the universe will ever matter because everything will eventually be wiped out. And it's sort of an existential terror. But they all turned back. They refused to go down to the surface after experiencing the terror. So our two groups of people, Kanu and his wife, or ex-wife, and Goma and her wife, arrive in the system. Goma meets up with Eunice, and they have a chat, and the sabotage thing that was supposed to happen turns out it was a biological weapon against the Tantors. And so Eunice gets really upset and almost kills Rue, but it turns out Rue wasn't the one who did it. But from that point on, Rue hates Eunice, but Eunice seems to really have a shine for Goma, and so is trying to get Rue back on her side because she likes Goma, and Goma's married to Rue. Anyways, Kanu, meanwhile, goes and meets Dakota, and she basically holds him hostage and uses him to get down to Poseidon, because Dakota and they didn't have any ships that could get them back to Poseidon, which she's in contact with the Watchkeepers this whole time. Why didn't the Watchkeepers just make her a ship or get her a ship? She wants the same thing as the Watchkeepers. If she's their puppet and they are this giant machine intelligence, they can just teleport her over there, transport her over there, get her ship. Anyways, so Kanu is unwillingly going to the planet Poseidon. Goma and Eunice are trying to catch up with him, saying, no, don't do that, because apparently if you go down to the planet, or if you fail the test that the M builders have put into this planet, it could cause the extinction of all humanity or something. So they're like, no, don't do it. And he's like, I have to do it. No, don't do it. And Swift, the machine inside Canu's head, manages to take over the ship, and so they're about to actually not do it and be free, but the gravity's too much for the Tantors that are aboard the ship, who are their enemy. But Canu's like, no, I can't live with them actually dying, so let's go down to the planet and risk all of human life anyways. So they go down to the planet and they crash land, and a bunch of them die, and Eunice and them decide to go down as well to perform a rescue operation, and Eunice has to end up sacrificing herself to save Rue, and so Eunice dies. And they read some of the information written on these arches, these wheels, and they come to the conclusion that the M builders have like placed themselves into the fabric of reality or something in order to prevent it or to live through it. Anyways, so it ends with like a weird philosophical thing like, hey, if everything ends and nothing will ever matter and there is no posterity, then only what matters is doing it in the moment. And that makes every act of kindness all the more important and special, because it will not be remembered for posterity and it only matters to those who blah, 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 blah. So Rue lives. Canu's wife kind of dies, but is in stasis, potentially with the ability to be rezzed, but she's pretty dead. Eunice dies, Dakota dies. At one point Eunice activates the mandala on Gleis 163 and shoots Zanzibar far, far away. So Zanzibar is now in another solar system, and at the end, very, very end of the book, we experience the Tantors, the Risen, these elephants, find themselves floating around a sort of a hub planet that's surrounded by many mandalas, and some sort of aliens are coming up to meet them. And they have a whole bunch of humans aboard Zanzibar, but they're asleep, and the head elephant there is like, we're going to let them sleep because we can take care of ourselves now. Meanwhile, Goma, the remaining Tantors on Osiron or Orison, and Canu take the long journey back to Crucible. By this point, like 200 years have passed. Things are different. People now have nanites back in their head, and sort of a different version of the internet is now up and running. They don't really have a way to resurrect Canu's wife, so he's going to go back to Earth to do that. And he also has learned that Mars is now being colonized by humans, and some of the machines from Mars have enclaves on Earth. And he's like, wow, great, peace, love, and happiness. And Goma is going to take Eunice's heart. They have her biological heart that they're going to take back to Earth to bury in Africa. And I thought, oh, it's going to end the same way the first one starts. So the first one starts with the scattering. So scattering Eunice's ashes with Eunice's death. And I'm like, oh, the third one, they're going to end it with a burial, another Eunice funeral. I'm like, oh, okay, at least it came full circle. But no. Canu's just like, hey, you stay here. I'm actually going to go back to Earth, so I'll take her heart and do it. Goma's like, okay, I'll stay here with the Tantors, and because I love elephants. And they all live happily ever after. And that's how it ended. I really didn't like this one. It was a letdown. This is why I didn't remember it at all. The second books are really good. I do really like On the Steel Breeze. First one's like, it's okay, it's unique, an African setting. It's not sufficiently advanced to be that obscure. It's kind of a cool sort of, humanity has started colonizing the solar system. It did drag on a bit. The pacing was weird, but I did like the second one. But the third one is, honestly, you could just go without reading it. And I don't often say that, but like just the way that the Arachne stuff and the Chiku Red not being in it at all, like I think you could just not read this third book and just have those two books on their own. Yeah. So that was my hot take on Poseidon's Wake by Alastair Reynolds, the third and final book of this so-called Poseidon's Children trilogy.